Hi everybody, I'm Fred Yentz. It's great to be here. I'm sure there are quite a few folks, some of you were in the room yesterday. We had a great time as we just talked about. But I want to talk first about Robert. Great presentation, Robert. I love somebody that comes in front of us and talks about the problems. And I like to be able to talk about how do we make IoT real. The days of endless RFIs are ending. RFPs are happening. Customers are getting anxious, whether it's fear of being left behind, whether it's a silly management objective to do something in IoT. We're seeing just a lot more traction, and I'm sure you guys are doing and seeing the same. So I'm going to take you through a few things that I hope you find insightful. I'm going to use some examples, and let's just get started. For those of you who don't know who Telit is, we're a global IoT enablement company. We really think about the world in end-to-end. We make modules that you can instrument assets with, connect assets with, modules like 2G, 3G, 4G, LTE, narrowband IoT, CAD-M, Wi-Fi, BLE, you name it. We've got a band or a frequency or a radio type that can allow your stuff to connect. If you instrument a thing and you don't connect it, it's called increased cost for no value. So we provide connectivity. If you instrument a thing and you connect a thing and you don't do something good with the data, again, that's just a costly thing with a service contract. So now we got to get the data off of that thing and place it into an area where value can be created, where we can make it actionable. What's interesting is we think about the IoT world and the buyers, of which there's none here. Buyers don't need to be confused with a lot of the details. But we as a supply side community love to talk about how hard it is. So we're kind of creating the problem of confusing them. We're talking about how hard it is, how many components and pieces there are. But what I hope the people in this room and the community making IoT happen can do is they can start applying our collective IoT know-how to get our customers more successful quicker. So, as I said, we do lots of modules, we do lots of different connectivity, and it's not just about connectivity, it's about connectivity management. A lot of people will talk about this as maybe bandwidth economics and reliability. IoT is interesting and it's easy if you have one or two things. IoT gets really hard when you have 10,000, 100,000, or 500,000 things. So keeping track of stuff is a little tougher. So connectivity isn't just a connection, it's about a managed connection and tools to do that. Platforms, and here's where I think Robert and I will start to violently agree. Platforms really gives us an opportunity to take some layers of very, very heterogeneous stuff. I love the old PLC, the now Schneider PLC that he showed on his charts. One of the most interesting things about that is that was a 30-year-old piece of gear. If it's on the plant floor and it's working, traditionally, it's not going to get replaced. So we can talk about standards and we can talk about this utopian environment where things just all connect and work together. But the bottom line is we live in a world where heterogeneous things just will continue to exist. A car will never really be connected like maybe a bike, which will never really be connected like maybe a piece of medical equipment. Industries have protocols, industries have standards. And unfortunately, or fortunately, IoT has no limits on the industries that it can approach. So we're going to always live in areas where there's lots and lots of different standards and interfaces. If it's not at the device level, it's going to be at the IT level, right? SAP and IBM and Microsoft and Oracle and all of these folks, they're all fabulous IT companies, but their stuff just doesn't work together easily. If any of you have ever lived through an ERP or a CRM transition from one system to the other, you didn't install it, hit the go button, and you're up and running, right? So there's a lot of different technologies and standards, and when you start putting a platform in between, you have the ability to have sort of that mediation layer so you can continue, even though the world may be stopped in terms of their install base and what they have. And then, of course, we talked about know-how. So how do we take the cool stuff we know in this room and make sure that the buyers out there focus on their subject matter in their expertise in their markets, and they just apply IoT. Not necessarily have to learn all the details about IoT, but just use it as a tool. And I think that's our challenge as well. How do we take and make it easier for our customers so they can focus on being a medical supply company or focus on being a rideshare enabler? They don't need to know bands and frequencies and rate tables and protocols. It should just be a tool that they use. And I like to use the example. If I hire an accountant tomorrow, they come to work for me, I probably don't want that accountant to spend the first year writing a spreadsheet program. That'd be kind of a waste of an accountant's time. How can I bring an accountant in and just give them a really cool tool, maybe like Excel, right? Which is kind of a platform, and they just use it, and they create a balance sheet tomorrow. They don't have to wait a year before they figure out how to write an inferior spreadsheet program. Unfortunately, again, we, as the supply chain of IoT, frequently like to talk about how hard it is. And that's just not a great message for the buying community that's really fired up to buy something now. We don't need another impediment. So I'll skip through this quick. I won't even talk to it. So Telit's global. We've been around a long time, way before they even called it IoT, kind of even before the idea of M2M. But we can't do it alone. We try to create a thriving ecosystem. We try to educate and communicate with our ecosystem. And of course, it's about looking at things through the optics of ultimately delivering an end-to-end solution. At the end of the day, our customers want outcomes, business outcomes. They want results. They don't want to know, how the watch is made. Nobody likes to watch sausage being made. It tastes good, and I like to know the time, but they don't need to know all the details necessarily. So I frequently will say, it's not about the technology. Now, I have a lot of software guys and technologists that work for me, so they usually look at me really angrily when I say it's not about the technology. It's about making money, saving money, and ensuring compliance. And if you can't do one of those three in an IoT implementation, basically you've either created a more expensive asset or you've created a science project. You've created something that's not going to make anybody really happy, and it certainly won't be sustainable. So we've got to figure out how to engage on things that make money, save money, or as I say, keep people out of jail, compliance. And let our customers, who are the subject matter experts of their markets and industries, figure out what those things are. Don't have them spend all their time thinking about how the stuff works. So it's interesting when I think about IoT, doing so many projects. We have 6,500 customers. So much of it is the same. So much of it is the same. When we think through this, we have stuff that might be, very, very early, maybe agriculture, in the production side. How do you connect to it? What do you do with it? We have stuff in the process side, manufacturing, industrial IoT. How do you connect to it? How do you solicit data from it? How do you move the data? How do you get it up to a point where actions can be made? Distribution and transportation. How do you connect to the car? How do you instrument the car, connect, and then move that data? And then, of course, even in the consumption, how do I connect and collect information from a point of sale environment, from maybe a consumer experience, move it up, do analytics, and move on it, and create, again, actionable results. There's a common thread here. Everything starts with instrument, connect, collect, and take action. So these things all are generally similar. And there are definitely different standards, and there's stuff in the middle, but we're a bunch of smart people that know the space or are learning the space, and we can figure a lot of this stuff out for our customers. Process, and we'll deviate a little bit at the end of this to talk about a real-world set of tools that we're seeing used pretty radically in the industrial space that solve some of these issues. Plant floor automation. Follow the money. Richard was talking about all kinds of interesting jokes earlier in a panel. He says, "Why do you ride the bank?" Well, the guy said, "Well, that's where the money is." And if in reality, that's where the money is in the industrial automation and the industrial space, let's have our customers make money, save money, and add value there. It's a good start. So as we go through here, and again, just kind of moving on through consumption, same type of stuff. There's all kinds of common solutions. And when you think through this end to end, what we ultimately see is there are solution types and there's connection methods. And quite frankly, when you map these or group these into those areas, these solutions are, for all practical purposes, repeatable. And everybody thinks, again, IoT is fragmented hard and everything is this new initiative. But we get scale as a community when things are repeatable. So how do we make things repeatable? Whether it's farming and ag, farm to fork, whether it's petrochem, the same use cases apply. So I like to think of this as, if we do everything ourselves, right? If everything is a do-it-yourself space, you're going to have an enormous amount of challenges, time, and every time you do it end to end yourself, you may actually do it differently. Matter of fact, it's probable that you will do it differently. So when we think of that, we think of, again, perpetuating sort of the success. We're lengthening the time to success. Now, what's happened in IoT, and some of you are here, and it's a great solution, many times is they said, if this was so hard, let's just put together some canned vertical apps. Just simple canned vertical apps. Let's be an ASP, and some of you are, but when you're an ASP, you deliver an app to the community of buyers. The buyers don't get a chance to change much. It's kind of a replicable standard app. It's going to cost a little more, which is fine, because the guy doing the app should make some money. We agree with that. But if I'm a Fortune 500 company, how many canned vertical apps am I going to need? I'm going to need one for my assets, one for my cars, one for my building systems, one for my, I might need 50. And now I have to manage 50 different vertical apps that don't connect, don't share data, don't do all kinds of stuff. Right is a enterprise customer. So then you look at partner, or what I'll call, maybe I should have renamed that column to platform, right? This is a case for platform. A platform gives you lots of defined layers, ins and outs, APIs that are standard. It gives you tools to make things repeatable. It reduces time to market because you don't do all the plumbing. You don't have to do all the nasty stuff. When I think of the do-it-yourself community, most do-it-yourselfers try to just get it done quick. I want to connect a thing, move it up, go here, go to an app, everybody's happy. They don't really think about, how do I do audit? How do I do security? How do I do scale? How can I roll back a problem if something ingested and I want to get out of it? How do I really make it what I'll call industrial grade? They take the garden path. 20% of the work gives them 80% there. The next 20% is 80% more time, right? Just like life. A lot of times the very end is tough to get to that, certainly in the development environment. And the do-it-yourself environment, I think, creates fragmentation, time, and complexity, again. So partner or platform. So let's say it's platform. How do you select the right platform? Is you're looking to build solutions for your customers, or you're looking to maybe implement it inside your enterprise. How do you pick a platform that's got the right degree of what I'll say enterprise grade quality? That's again, audit, security. How do you do, multi-tenant, multi-user, multi-role? These are all the kinds of things that has really nothing to do with connecting an asset in the IoT world. It just is about making it enterprise grade. How do you make something that you don't want to pick a platform that is not deployment ready? You want to pick pieces and parts and platform tools that can get you to market quicker, right? Part of not doing do-it-yourself is to go faster. Now, the third thing is you do want to have extensibility. You want to have the ability to customize things, so you do ultimately want it to be developer friendly. Because it's a platform, but you're going to make changes around the edges. If you couldn't make changes, it would be called a vertical solution, a turnkey solution. So carrier grade, enterprise grade, deployment ready, and developer friendly are three big criteria that you should think about when you try to move the market faster. So again, enterprise grade, wow. Most big enterprises that have a CIO and a CSO and a CFO, they will give you very clear definitions of what an enterprise grade application is. Pretty simple. Again, a lot of developers won't think through that because IoT is fun and new, but you gotta collect real requirements. When you think about deployment ready, do I deploy it out of my data center in the Americas? Can I move it to Turkey? Can I take it to Japan? Is it global? Can it run on multiple operators? Maybe I want to buy it from an operator. Can I go to my M&O and subscribe if I'm working in a region where maybe I don't want to provide the infrastructure myself? And I'm not talking about the data plans, I'm talking about just even the data, the services and storage, et cetera. And then again, developer friendly. My goodness, publications, documentation, simple ways, good examples, learning tools, reference designs, free trials. How do I get started? So again, ask yourselves these questions. Now I'm going to give you an example of where the rubber really meets the road, and back to the previous IIC, or I guess the IC presentation. This is where things are happening fast and now. The future in IoT for industrial space is now. And we already discussed that everything on the left can be of multiple generations. It's old, it's designed to not connect, it can be horrible. And everything on the right isn't created equal. So somehow in the middle, you gotta create some type of a platform. And the numbers of different manufacturers who love to talk about their standard way of connecting, which is completely non-standard to the way the next vendor connects. So the point of standards are great, everybody should have one. In the industrial space, that was really what happened. Everybody had one. So how do you make sure you can talk to all those things equally, extract information, and move them to the enterprise? Some of you in the audience are old enough, some of you aren't. I love talking to young kids when I say things like a USB cable. They're like, well, wasn't it always USB? Remember traveling in a hotel, trying to print out a document on a 232 or a parallel port, not having a driver. There wasn't even this thing called the internet to drive one down to your PC, right? It was a nightmare. Can you fax it to me? Gosh, my kids don't even know what a fax machine is anymore. But that was a pain in the butt, and that's easy integration. Third-party printer happens to be not the one that's on my desk. Really awesome little luggable PC, but I can't really plug it in. And now that I make the cables fit, my goodness, I can't get it to work. Then this cool invention came out. You plugged in this thing, this little cable that actually fit into everything on both sides. It auto-enumerated the printer. Microsoft was kind enough to preload a whole bunch of drivers. And you know what? You hit print. That's what I call magic. So yesterday when we were talking at our seminar, somebody said, when technology is so pervasive and works so good, basically it's like magic. It's like air, it's just there. So how do we figure out how to make the industrial world seem just like magic? So I think of this as kind of the USB for industrial IoT. You plug it into a network, it auto-enumerates all these devices, it enumerates the tags, it does a whole bunch of stuff. Now it doesn't do it with magic, it does it with about 30 years of hard work. We wrote custom drivers, we had this huge library of stuff that we support, but man, it's valuable because to the poor guy that was trying to get that old parallel printer to work with a serial cable and no driver at a hotel long ago, plugging it in and making it work on the shop floor is magic. So creating a little magic in industrial IoT is good. And you know what, there's some pretty big name companies on the bottom of there that actually think that this is pretty magical. So I guess that probably qualifies for industrial grade, enterprise ready kind of a solution. So what's also neat is when you go into the industrial market, 90% of the value you might create for them is moving the data around furiously inside the four walls of the factory. Remember, these are worlds that used to never touch the internet. They would air gap the boundaries of the factory because somebody could get hurt. If somebody hacked it and a robot arm came across and killed somebody, it wasn't locked out, tagged out. So there's all kinds of challenges when you instrument things that move and can potentially create challenges. But this is a tool that gives you the ability to deliver that 90% value on the shop floor or in the factory or in the industrial setting, but also gives you the ability to remotely monitor and selectively remotely access. And who's in control? The factory owner, because he's the one that has the liability of that machine hurting a worker. So having the context of the machine, having the ability to decide whether you connect or not connect, and having the ability to do it without an enormous amount of DIY work actually can start delivering some pretty cool IoT value that most people will say, hey, I've either made a little more money today, I've saved a little time and money today, or maybe I just stayed out of trouble, right? So it's about use cases and it's about getting that information to places where it's actionable. It might be those predictive maintenance, field service, remote monitoring. Again, it's back to those common use cases and common methods of connectivity. So think about feeding data to the ecosystem. Think about monetizing that data if it's yours, or think about making sure that your customer knows how to monetize that data if it's theirs, because that, again, adds to the make money, save money equation. So at the end, how do we create more IoT know-how? We spent yesterday, we tried to spread some know-how, and we tried to get some know-how from the folks that attended yesterday, and we had about 1,100 registered and probably about 750 or so that were here. It was great. But not everybody can be here. So the idea is, how do you get one day of value? Because everybody wants to go fast, right? That's the other horrible thing about the Internet of Things space right now. Because most of it is a platform as a service business or some type of a subscription business. Customers want it for free. Let's try it for free. The problem is it's actually sometimes a consultative sale, and you're trying to get them to figure out how to make money. So you're spending so much time working with them that when you get all done and they say, isn't it like $1 a month? You know, it gets tough. So you need to show progress quick. How do you do something great in a day? How do you do something that's showable and demonstrable maybe in a week? And how do I get a pilot running in a month? So when we think about IoT, we got to think about velocity, we got to think about scale, we got to think about enterprise grade, we got to think about carrier ready, we got to think about, you know, staying out of jail, keeping the machine running, and us as a community of suppliers, for the most part, we have to make it easier for our customers to adopt IoT. Get their subject matter expertise applied to the problem, and we just deliver the tools and the platforms to make it easy. Thank you very much.